You know how many of us are convinced that our phones are listening to us because as soon as we have a conversation, 5 minutes later, we get a targeted ad about whatever we were talking about? Well, the Federal Trade Commission just fined a company almost $1 million over claims that they were listening to you and then using that information for targeted ads. But of course, there's a twist, and the fine may not be what you think it's for. So let's explain what happened. Cox Media Group and these two smaller marketing firms were marketing this thing called active listening, which is essentially they listen to you, then that conversation goes through AI and you get targeted ads for what you were talking about. That was the whole claim here. And if it sounds creepy, well, according to some of their marketing material, they even knew that. This is a direct quote from some of their marketing material. It said, "Creepy? Sure. Good for marketing? Definitely." So let's talk about where that fine comes in, because the fine is because that's not what the company was doing. And the FTC says they were deceptive in how they were marketing this to companies. So essentially, the FTC says that they were not using that data. Instead, they were using consumer data and email list. So they were not listening and then not using it for targeted ads. And that's where the fine from the FTC comes in. They also say that people did not opt into being able to be listened to. That was not part of it either. So the fine comes in not because it is creepy and people should not be listened to and use that information for targeted ads, but because they were being deceptive in how they got that information. Now, the Cox Media Group says that they got that information through a third party and they're happy to have this settled. They said that to one publication. They also reached out to the two smaller marketing firms, haven't heard back from them. But so many of us are convinced that our phones are always listening to us and using that information. The FTC says that was not the case in this situation, but could it be in others?